Hey guys, LovelyMuze here. Before I introduce you to what the video will be about, I first want to say a big thank you for getting me to 1K subscribers. I really appreciate the support that I've been receiving, and I hope to provide you guys with more content, better content moving forward. Once again, thank you for the support. So, as the title of the video states, I thought it would be interesting to do a breakdown of HYBE's accusations in order to provide a better understanding of the claims made against them. Strangely enough, every time I go on Twitter or Reddit, but mostly Reddit, oftentimes I will see posts either claiming HYBE is pulling a monopoly on the K-pop industry, or that HYBE is simply acquiring groups and their companies but isn't actually involved with said groups or companies. Well, today I thought we should get to the bottom of these claims and finally put an end to them. So in short, there are two things that I will be addressing in this video: the monopoly aspect and the acquisition and involvement aspect. Before we get started, I thought it would be better to basically provide a summary of HYBE from the time Bang PD founded the company to our present. This is so we can get an understanding on whether or not the claims made against HYBE are true, or at the very least, valid. And so, let's start at the beginning. HYBE is a company that was previously known as Big Hit. However, after acquiring so many different other companies, they needed a way to organize and make sense of things, and so Bang PD decided to create HYBE, a corporation that houses many different companies that are basically subsidiaries of the corporation. Companies such as Big Hit Music, that currently houses artists such as BTS, TXT, and Lee Hun; Source Music, that used to house the group G-Friend; Plays Entertainment, that currently houses Newest, 17, Nana, and Formus 9. Sorry if I butchered that. B-Lift Lab, that houses Hyphen; KOZ Entertainment, that is owned by the solo artist Zico; and whatever company Scooter Braun owns. Sorry, I don't like the dude, but he houses artists such as Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande. The first K-pop group that the company ever debuted was the girl group called Glam back in 2012. Keep in mind that Big Hit did have other artists under their company prior to Glam, such as the musical trio 8 and 2AM. However, the first K-pop group that was being promoted as a K-pop group was officially owned by Big Hit was Glam. Glam was a group formed through the collaboration of Source Music, so technically speaking, they weren't entirely owned by Big Hit, but compared to 2AM, they were marketed more as a Big Hit group. Also, this also means that G-Friend is technically not Source's Music first girl group, but I will say that they are the first girl group that the company created on their own. But this also means that Source Music was already in works with Big Hit way before G-Friend even debuted. But anyways, back to Glam. Unfortunately, Glam would only become active for about 2 years due to a controversy involving one of their members being sentenced to prison after being found guilty of blackmailing a prominent actor. And it is because of this incident that some believe that it was the reason why Bang PD was very adamant on debuting any more girl groups. This is until recently, of course. While dealing with the incident surrounding Glam, Big Hit did decide to debut another K-pop group, but this time a boy group by the name of BTS in 2013. However, prior to the debut of BTS or even Glam, Big Hit did have another K-pop group under their wing. The group was called 2AM, and it was a group that was being co-managed by both Big Hit and JYP Entertainment. And as I stated earlier, compared to Glam, 2AM was not necessarily owned by Big Hit or really marketed as a Big Hit group. They were more seen as a JYP group. Furthermore, shortly after signing a joint management contract for the group 2AM back in 2010, Big Hit had signed RM, who would later become the first member of BTS. Fast forward a bit and we find ourselves in 2014. Honestly speaking, I feel like 2014 was quite a year for Big Hit, because not only were they still dealing with the incident surrounding Glam, but they also had to deal with the loss and disbandment of two groups, 2AM and 8, which made BTS and Home. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm just going to call them Home moving forward. But Home was basically a duo made up of two members of 2AM. So BTS and Home would be the only active groups that Big Hit had at the moment due to the disbandment of 2AM and 8. Now, fast forward to 2018 and we find ourselves in another year that was actually quite eventful. However, compared to 2014, this year was mostly positive. apart from the disbandment of Home, Big Hit did see a lot of growth with the company. They created a joint company with CJAM called B-Lift, a company that would later house in Hyphen, and they also saw a rise in popularity and growth with their group, BTS, which later extended to the growth and popularity of the company. In addition, BTS had renewed and extended their contract with the company for 7 more years, and the company had also been voted the best investment company of the year at the 2018 Korea VC Awards. So in short, I believe it's safe to say that 2018 was not just a good year for K-pop in general, or even for BTS, but for Big Hit also. Now, 2019 came and we saw the debut of TXT. 2019 was also the year that former CBO Lenzo Yoon was appointed co-CEO with Bang PD. While Yoon would focus on the business aspect of the company, Bang PD focused on the creative part of the company. So in short, Yoon was making the business deals while Bang PD was making the production creative deals. In other words, when it came to like music and the type of music that the company and their artists would produce, that was Bang PD. While when it came to how the company would market themselves and when it came to making other deals with other companies, that was Yoon. At least that's how I understood it. Now, 2019 was also the year that Big Hit officially acquired Source Music, which to me, when I found that out, I was actually quite shocked because I thought Source Music had already been acquired like back in like 2016 or like 2015. So I was actually quite shocked to find out that it was only 2019 that Source Music had been acquired. Now, if anyone isn't aware, Source Music is the company that houses G-Friend, a very popular girl group at the time until their unfortunate disbandment. Anyways, 2019 was also the year that Big Hit had launched Weverse, a communication and merchandise shopping app that was developed by their subsidiary, BNX. Now moving on to 2020 and 2021. Big Hit acquired Playdays Entertainment, becoming the majority shareholder by owning 85% of the company. They also acquired KOC Entertainment, and along with BNX, they invested around 70 billion won on YG Plus, and acquired 17.9% on the media and advertisement company under YG Entertainment. Ever since then, Big Hit has kind of been going on a shopping spree, acquiring and partnering up with other labels and companies. Labels and companies such as Naver Corporation, a company that develops and owns the communication streaming app VLive. Universal Music Group, a company that they plan on collaborating with on various music and technology related things. Giffen Records, label that is partnering up with Big Hit to debut a global boy group. And a Korea-based AI company that they invested on, which specializes in creating hyper-realistic voices using technology. And it is through all of these acquisitions, collaborations, partnerships, and investments that have made people believe and accuse HYBE of pulling a monopoly on the K-pop industry. Monopoly is a strange thing to accuse someone of in K-pop, and it's very strange to see it being associated with K-pop, especially because that term is typically associated with criminals in organized crime. But that doesn't mean that it is exclusively associated to just criminals. For those who may not be aware of what the term means, monopoly is a term used to describe when a specific person, group, or enterprise is the only supplier of a particular supply or trade in a commodity or service. For instance, monopoly would be when a person has control all over toilet paper and they are the only supplier of that product. That's what you call a monopoly. So, for HYBE to even be considered to have a monopoly on the K-pop industry, they essentially have to be the only ones producing idols and K-pop groups, and at the very least, be the only ones producing majority of the idols and own majority of the K-pop industry, which they don't. If we exclude the idol groups from companies that HYBE has acquired, HYBE doesn't even have more than 3 groups. Not to mention the only K-pop companies they have acquired are Source Music, Playdays, and KOZ Entertainment. That's only 3 out of like how many K-pop companies there actually is in the industry. By the way, there's like more than 50 K-pop companies in the industry. B-Lift is a company HYBE created alongside another company. The other companies, excluding Source Music, Playdays, and KOZ, are other companies that essentially specialize in other things outside of the K-pop industry. Y'all literally saw them acquire 3 companies and automatically accuse them of monopolizing the K-pop industry. Look, HYBE may be money hungry, but no matter how hungry they are for money, it's literally impossible for them to monopolize the K-pop industry just on the simple fact of how big that industry is. Not to mention how impractical and unrealistic it would be for them to do so. So, does HYBE have a monopoly on the K-pop industry despite only acquiring 3 K-pop companies? No. HYBE's acquisition of 3 companies and multiple investments and partnerships does not mean that they are pulling a monopoly on the K-pop industry. But it does, however, make them look money hungry. I feel like the better claim made against HYBE would have been how HYBE's hunger for money and how that has basically led to them producing lackluster products and paywall content that are basically overpriced. That would have been a better claim than you guys accusing them of monopoly. Now on to the second claim, which is that despite all of these acquisitions, HYBE doesn't involve themselves in any of the companies that they have acquired. This is actually something that I've noticed when it comes to fans speaking about HYBE and their acquisitions to other companies, and more specifically about their acquisitions of music labels such as Source Music and Playdays Entertainment. A lot of the time, most of the conversations or statements I hear are about how HYBE doesn't have control or make decisions or is even involved when it comes to the artists and groups under these 2 companies. And this is despite the fact that HYBE literally owns 85% to 100% of these 2 companies. HYBE owns 85% of Playdays Entertainment shares while owning 100% stake of Source Music, yet people will still say HYBE has no control or involvement with these 2 companies. It's almost like people forget how business works and how, more importantly, how business people think. No one's going to invest or purchase a company that they have no control or say in. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants what's best for their wallets. Yes, even though HYBE during their acquisition did state that Playdays would retain their independence, it's clear that ever since their acquisition of the company, there have been a lot of changes made within the company and with the groups under Playdays Entertainment. Good changes and bad changes, and you can best believe that these changes were not made by the CEO of Playdays, but rather changes clearly made through HYBE's requests or demands. Yet, it seems that a lot of people are still adamant in believing that HYBE has control or involvement with the labels and companies that they acquire, especially those labels and companies that they own majority of the shares to. I actually find it quite baffling in a way, because the same people who would make statements and claims that HYBE doesn't do this or doesn't do that will be the same ones claiming HYBE's contribution to when a group reaches or receives a certain success or award. For instance, I have noticed that when fans of a certain group from a company that HYBE has acquired rightfully complains about something being changed or something lacking or simply negative things affecting the group after the acquisition, company stands would dismiss it and ultimately claim that HYBE has nothing to do with it. And their biggest argument that follows that claim is that they only financially support the groups in their company. But the moment the same group that they were up in arms against wins something or gains something spectacular, all of a sudden they attribute it to HYBE's doing. But which is it? It's either HYBE is part of it or they aren't. The issue here is that they want to pick and choose when they want to exclude or include HYBE. Not to mention, it seems that they are too far up HYBE's to see or accept any slight criticism, whether valid or not, and ultimately choose to view it as negative or bashful. It's very odd to believe that a corporation that owns majority of a company isn't pulling strings from behind. Just because they say Playdays will retain their independence doesn't mean that they aren't still making changes or pulling other strings within the company. Keep in mind that they never specify what kind of independence Playdays would be retaining. For all we know, they could have just simply meant the musical aspect of independence, but the business aspect would still be controlled by and involve HYBE. Plus, Playdays may very well be independent, but it's all about the level of independence that they have. Plus, I find the whole argument of HYBE only providing financial support invalid, at least as an argument made against those who do claim that HYBE does have involvement, because them providing financial support is involvement in itself. That's them involving themselves. Plus, when you think about it, it makes sense for HYBE to financially support a company that they literally own 85% of. People really believe that Bang PD would buy and invest in a company and even own majority of it and not make changes to said company or put his input. Besides, there have literally been instances of HYBE's involvement far beyond just providing money for Playdays Entertainment. For instance, merchandise. People have stated how ever since the acquisition, 17 and newest merchandise has dropped in value, but the price has increased. Not to mention the color scheme of the group's official colors have disappeared from their merchandises. Other changes, such as the time slot of Going 17 being moved, the change from Lost into HYBE Japan for 17's Japanese promotions, the fact that 17 can no longer perform on NBC, the shutdown of Superstar Playdays, moving to a bigger practice room and a bigger building, the involvement of Bang PD in their music, specifically for their Your Choice album, the rise in production for their ongoing show Going 17, and their music videos, their appearance on In the Soup, their Weverse inclusion, and most importantly, their increased exposure to Western fans through more Western promotions. Which, by the way, was actually the main thing that HYBE was offering to do once acquiring Playtis. All of these changes are HYBE's doing, yet people still want to say that HYBE is not involved. Based on all of these alone, it's clear that the claim that HYBE doesn't involve themselves with the companies they acquire and only provide financial support is false and invalid. HYBE may not be vocal about their involvement, but they definitely do pull strings from behind. Just take 17's song Ready to Love as an example. Bang PD didn't have to come right out and say that he helped produce Ready to Love, because news articles and the album itself states his name for him, which is the point I am trying to make. Sometimes actions speak louder than words. A person doesn't have to outright say they are doing something for it to be seen as true, when the receipt is literally there in black and white. HYBE doesn't have to outright say that they are involved with the companies that they acquire, because we can all see that they are. However, some people just either refuse to acknowledge it or just simply outright deny it. And just because HYBE says that Playtis has independence doesn't mean that HYBE won't involve themselves, especially when it comes to making large and important decisions that will affect them directly as a business. So in conclusion, does HYBE have a monopoly on the K-pop industry? No. Do they involve themselves with companies they have acquired beyond just financial support? Yes. Is HYBE moving like every other major K-pop industry? Yes. I feel like the only reason why people are so focused and quick to call out HYBE is because HYBE was once a small company, and compared to the other major K-pop companies such as the Big Three, HYBE didn't really have that much to go on, from a business standpoint that is. All of these moves, all of these acquisitions, investments, and partnerships that people are using as claims to accuse HYBE of trying to monopolize the industry are simply things that the Big Three were doing and are still doing. The only difference is the rate in which they are doing it is vastly different, as I will say that HYBE does seem to be moving pretty fast. Well, this brings me to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, don't be afraid to like and share your own thoughts down below in the comment section. This has been LovelyMuze. See you next time.